Stop pretending they made a mistake. They didn't. It was a choice. They looked at your heart, your trust, your love, and they chose to break it. Don't give them a second chance. They knew exactly what they were doing. You want closure? You want a reason? Here's your reason. They saw your worth and still chose to destroy it. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't confusion. That was calculated. Stop rewriting the story to protect their image. Because every time you excuse their behavior, you betray your own healing. Some people don't come back because they deserve you. They come back because they realize they can control you. Let me say this loud. You don't need to forgive what was never an apology. You don't need to fix what they broke intentionally. And you damn sure don't need to give them a second chance. You give second chances to honest mistakes, not to assassins dressed as lovers. They knew what they were doing. Don't let your love blind you to that fact. This wasn't a heat of the moment thing. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't immaturity. It wasn't they didn't know better. No. They calculated your loyalty. They observed your silence. They saw how you stayed after the first disappointment. And they used it as permission to hurt you again. Think of it like this. If someone knocks over a glass once, it's a mistake. If they keep doing it, stepping on the pieces, laughing while you clean it up, that's intentional. That's not love. That's cruelty disguised in a familiar face. You remember the time you cried in front of them? Shaking, broken, vulnerable. And they still walked out, chose someone else, disappeared. Or worse, you were too emotional. That was not confusion, that was clarity with zero empathy. They knew they were choosing ego over empathy, control over care, power over partnership. It's like giving someone your favorite book and they rip the pages, scribble in the margins, then tell you you're overreacting. No, they didn't respect the gift. They disrespected you because they thought you wouldn't take it back. And most times we don't. Because our heart tells us to give people the benefit of the doubt, even when the doubt is gone. Let me take you to another moment you've probably lived. You texted first, called first, apologized first, even when you were the one bleeding, and they ignored it. Delayed response, dry energy, selective care. Why? Because they knew you'd still be there. They didn't forget your birthday. They didn't miss the good morning text. They didn't accidentally forget to check on you. They prioritized someone else. And you were just there. Hoping, praying, defending. And that's what stings the most. When you realize they weren't confused. They were just committed to hurting you while keeping access to your heart. We've all had that one friend who only calls when they need something, who disappears when you need them. Coincidence? No. It's a pattern. They don't value you, they value your usefulness. And once they drain you dry, they vanish like you never mattered. Stop confusing patterns with potential. People show you exactly who they are when they think you'll never leave. And when you don't, they dig deeper. Even in relationships. Let's say you caught them cheating, lying, hiding things, and they looked at you with wide eyes and said, it didn't mean anything, but it meant enough for them to risk your love, your peace, your mental health. Do you see it now? That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision, fully made, fully aware, and fully careless. When someone plays with your emotions like a game, when they're consistent in how they disrespect you, when they gaslight you into believing you're the problem, they're not. Unaware, they're strategic. That's how manipulators work. They test your boundaries until you don't have any left. It's like a boss at work who keeps piling tasks on you without credit, without recognition, without fair pay. And you keep saying yes because you're loyal, hardworking, committed, but they're not clueless. They're opportunistic. They know you won't push back. So they keep taking. People who love you do not hurt you repeatedly and call it a mistake. People who love you take accountability. They fear losing you. But those who damage you on purpose, they never feared your absence because they assumed you'd never walk away. And maybe you didn't. Not at first. Because you loved them deeper than they deserved. You gave more than they ever earned. You kept showing up with your whole heart. They'd finally treat it with care, but they knew what they were doing. They just knew you wouldn't do what you should have done sooner. Leave. Their sorry isn't healing you. You keep waiting for that one apology to fix the hole they left in your soul. But deep down you already know. Their words can't sew what their actions shredded. I'm sorry sounds beautiful, doesn't it? It's the sentence we wait to hear. It makes you pause, drop your guard, breathe again for a second. But when someone says sorry with no intention to change, no intention to grow, it's not healing. It's manipulation dressed as kindness. It's a performance, not repentance. Think about it. Someone hurts you deeply. They betray your trust. They insult you when you're most vulnerable. They disappear when you need them the most. And then days later they come back with a text or a call that says, sorry, I didn't mean it. But if they didn't mean it, why did they repeat the same behavior so easily? A sincere apology doesn't just say, I'm sorry. It follows with changed behavior. It makes you feel safer, not shakier. It creates growth, not anxiety. Yet you find yourself stuck in this endless loop. They hurt you, apologize just enough to stay in your life, and then hurt you again when they're comfortable. That's not healing. That's emotional recycling. You're not moving forward. You're spinning in circles that slowly destroy your self-worth. Imagine this. Someone borrows your favorite dress. You trusted them. You believed they'd take care of it, but they return it ripped, stained, and unrecognizable. When you question them, they say, oops, sorry. And the next week they do it again and again. Eventually you stop lending the dress. But more importantly, you start questioning your own value. Why do I keep trusting people who don't respect what I offer? That's how apologies work when they aren't real. They make you second-guess your standards, your expectations, even your pain. And pain that isn't acknowledged properly turns into silence. And silence, that's where you start losing yourself. Remember that one friend who only said sorry when you confronted them? Not because they felt guilty, but because they didn't want you mad? That wasn't healing. That was self-preservation. Their sorry was a key to unlock your forgiveness, not a promise to be better. And what happened next? Same behavior, same excuses, same cycle. Or that ex who cried, said sorry, promised they'd change, but still lied, still flirted, still vanished when life got tough. Their words sounded warm, but their actions stayed cold. And you kept trying to find comfort in that apology, hoping this time would be different. But sorry without action is like giving someone a band-aid when they need surgery. Even in families. How many times have you heard someone say, I'm your parent. I said I'm sorry. What more do you want? As if your pain has a limit. As if your healing has a deadline. But here's the truth. The right sorry doesn't ask you to stop hurting. It supports you while you're healing. You're not broken because their apology didn't fix you. You're not dramatic for needing more than words. Your heart isn't too much. It's just too valuable to be comforted by empty sounds. Healing comes from consistency, not convenience. You don't rebuild trust through one conversation. You do it through effort, through empathy, through actions that say, I care enough to never make you feel that way again. Their sorry isn't healing you because it was never about your pain. It was about their guilt. And guilt can be loud, but it doesn't always lead to growth. So stop waiting for a sentence to become a solution. Stop thinking that closure will come from the person who broke you. Sometimes the healing begins the moment you stop listening to apologies and start listening to your intuition. Because someone who's truly sorry won't just say it once. They live it daily. And their love won't come with a wound. Protect your peace, not their image. Because your peace is your power, your breath, your clarity. And every time you sacrifice it to protect someone else's reputation, you bleed in silence while they shine in comfort. Enough of that. You've been quiet for too long, haven't you? Carrying the weight of someone else's actions just so they don't look bad. You've been biting your tongue, defending them in rooms they never defended you in. You've painted them as a good person going through a tough time, when deep down you knew they were toxic, careless, and intentional. But you swallowed the truth because you didn't want to create drama. Let me tell you something powerful. Truth isn't drama, it's clarity. Think of the number of nights you've cried yourself to sleep, replaying every conversation, every manipulation, while they slept peacefully, unbothered. And yet, you still showed up the next day with a smile, telling people, we're okay, or it wasn't that bad. That's not loyalty. That's emotional imprisonment. You locked yourself in silence so they could be free in public. Let's talk about relationships. You were the one getting gaslighted, ignored, disrespected. But when your friends asked how things were going, you'd say, he's just stressed, or it's just a rough patch. Why did you protect him? Because you were taught that love means covering up, not speaking up. But silence doesn't keep peace. It protects their mask. You're not saving the relationship by staying silent. You're sacrificing your sanity. It happens in friendships too. You had that one friend who kept using you, lying to you, showing up only when they needed something. But you kept defending them to others. She's just busy. She's not usually like this. You guarded her image like a publicist, while she erased your worth like you were disposable. Why? Because you didn't want others to judge her. But tell me, who was protecting you? Even in families, this shows up. You've got relatives who've hurt you with their words, who've dismissed your dreams, mocked your pain. But you kept quiet during gatherings, kept smiling for the photo, kept pretending everything was normal. Because speaking the truth in a family setting is often labeled as disrespect. But let me ask you, is it disrespect to call out dysfunction, or is it bravery to break the chain? Stop confusing peacekeeping with people-pleasing. Protecting your peace might mean people misunderstand you. Let them. It might mean they call you dramatic, too sensitive, or difficult. Let them. Because your healing is not a PR campaign. You don't owe anyone the watered down version of your story to make them feel comfortable about how they treated you. You are not a shield for someone else's sins. You are not a canvas for someone else's character. You are not the silence that keeps their image intact while your spirit shatters. Protect your peace like your life depends on it. Because it does. When you finally stop protecting their image, you'll realize how many people only loved you because you kept quiet. You'll see how many relationships depended on your silence, not their effort. And that's the moment you reclaim your strength. Remember this. People who truly care about you will never ask you to lose yourself just to make them look better. They'll fix their behavior, not ask you to hide the bruise. They'll apologize in public, not just whisper sorry behind closed doors. They'll honor your peace, not demand your silence. You've been a warrior in the shadows long enough. Now be a queen in the light. Speak your truth, take up space, protect your peace like a crown, because the ones who truly value you won't need their image protected. They want access, not accountability. And they want access, not accountability. They want access, not accountability. That's the hard truth you keep ignoring, because it's wrapped in charm, wrapped in memories, wrapped in empty promises that sound like love, but feel like confusion. They don't want to fix what they broke. They just want to keep walking through the doors of your life without wiping their feet. Who wants a front row seat to your power without ever earning the right to stand beside you in the struggle? Even family members can fall into this. The relative who belittled you, dismissed your pain, or made you question your worth suddenly wants to be close again, not because they've taken ownership, but because they feel entitled to your energy. They want to skip the healing and keep the access. But what they don't realize is the price for proximity is no longer your silence, it's their accountability. You see, people like this are allergic to consequences. They are uncomfortable when you hold up a mirror. They'd rather you keep the door open, the conversation soft, the standards low. Because when you stop being easy to reach, they have to confront. Apologize in public, not just whisper sorry behind closed doors. They'll honor your peace, not demand your silence. You've been a warrior in the shadows long enough. Now be a queen in the light. Speak your truth, take up space, protect your peace like a crown, because the ones who truly value you won't need their image protected. They want access, not accountability. And they want access, not accountability. They want access, not accountability. That's the hard truth you keep ignoring, because it's wrapped in charm, wrapped in memories, wrapped in empty promises that sound like love, but feel like confusion. They don't want to fix what they broke. They just want to keep walking through the doors of your life without wiping their feet. Kind of emotional maturity they never developed. Think of the ex who vanished when you needed support, but reappeared once you posted a happy photo. Suddenly, hey stranger shows up in your DMs. Not, I'm sorry I hurt you. Not, I understand how I failed you. Just a lazy breadcrumb to reopen the door they used to walk through like they owned it. Why? Because they missed the access, not the accountability of becoming who you actually deserve. Or that friend who ghosted you when life got dark, but wants back in now that you're glowing. They want to be around your light, your success, your joy, but they were nowhere when you were in the pit. That's not loyalty. That's convenience. That's someone who wants to sit at your table but refuses to help you build it. You are not a revolving door. You are not a free pass to comfort. You are not a placeholder for people who fear growth. You are a sacred space. And anyone who wants to stay in your life must first be willing to clean up the mess they made. Not just knock and smile and expect you to forget the storm they brought. Your silence is your power. Not because you're weak, not because you're scared to speak, but because you've outgrown the need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes silence isn't empty. It's full. Full of wisdom, full of strength, full of boundaries, and full of fire that doesn't need to shout to burn. There's something magnetic about a woman who stops reacting. The moment you go quiet, they start to panic. They're not used to it. They're used to your tears, your pleading, your over-explaining. They're used to you trying to fix what they broke. But when you stop talking, stop chasing, stop defending yourself, suddenly the room echoes, and then echoes louder than any scream. Think about arguments. You ever notice how someone tries to bait you into a fight just to shift blame? Just to make you look like the angry one? But when you sit there, still, calm, unmoved, your silence breaks their performance. It strips away the drama. It exposes the truth. Because silence is clarity. Silence says, I see everything. A woman at peace is dangerous. A woman who doesn't clap back, doesn't beg, doesn't explain, she's unshakable. And people don't know how to handle that. That ex who played games with you, who thrived on the chaos, the back and forth, watch how confused he gets when you go silent. No more responding to late night texts. No more just one last talk. Your silence becomes a wall he can't climb. Because this time, you're not seeking closure, you are the closure. Even in the workplace, silence can shake systems. You don't always have to speak to make a statement. When you stop entertaining gossip, stop laughing at fake compliments, stop giving energy to people who use proximity as power, your silence becomes a filter. It separates the real from the fake. It's not passive, it's intentional. It says, I don't need to prove I belong here. My work speaks. My presence speaks. Friendships too. That one friend who always made shady comments, who gave you half-hearted support masked as concern. When you go quiet, when you stop explaining your choices, when you stop reacting to their sarcasm, they'll feel it. Your silence becomes a mirror they can't avoid. It reflects back their behavior without you saying a word. Because sometimes the most powerful response is no response. Silence is how you reclaim your emotional energy. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. You don't have to keep fighting battles that only leave you drained. Your peace is not up for discussion. And silence builds a fortress around that peace. It's the boundary that says, you don't get to waste my energy anymore. People will call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll label your silence as proud. Let them. Let them talk while you build. Let them guess while you glow. Because the more you silence the noise, the louder your purpose becomes. You don't need to scream your worth, you need to know it. And when you know your worth, your silence becomes a crown. When you stop chasing explanations, you start attracting respect. When you stop defending yourself, you start defining yourself. And when you stop speaking just to be heard, your silence starts to command the room. Because silence isn't the absence of power, it's the evolution of it. It's when you stop giving people access to your vulnerability just because they demand it. It's when you say, I don't owe anyone an audience to my healing. And that silence, that's not defeat. That's dominance. That's growth. That's royalty choosing not to step down into the chaos. You deserve loyalty, not lessons. You are not some project for people to experiment on. You are not a phase for someone to grow through. You are not someone's stepping stone to become a better partner for the next person. You are a woman worthy of loyalty, not betrayal, wrapped in a lesson you never asked for. Stop letting people romanticize the pain they caused you, as if it was part of some divine curriculum. It wasn't lesson, it was disrespect, and you didn't deserve it. You ever notice how people mistreat you and then try to sound wise after they've damaged you? You made me realize what I needed. You taught me how to love better. I had to lose you to understand what I had. No, you weren't a lesson. You were loyal. You were consistent. You were all in. And they played with that. They gambled with something solid just to chase something temporary. Then they want to come back, not with change, but with excuses masked as enlightenment. Imagine pouring your love into someone, standing by them through their storms, believing in their dreams, only for them to cheat, lie, disappear, and then come back saying, I've changed because of you. No, that wasn't your role. Your love isn't a crash course in becoming a better person. It's a privilege, not a punishment. It's sacred, not a survival test. You deserve someone who comes prepared, not someone who learns through hurting you. Even in friendships, this shows up. You support them, defend them, even against others, and the moment your back is turned, they gossip, they compete, they compare. And later they say, you taught me what a real friend is. But you didn't sign up to be a teacher. You signed up to be a friend. And loyalty? Loyalty means showing up right the first time, not messing up and using you as the price for their personal growth. And don't even get me started on family dynamics. The ones who criticized you when you were trying, who doubted you when you needed belief, who only cheered when the world already started clapping. Now they want to rewrite the narrative. They say, you've made us proud, but where was that energy when you needed support, not shame? You weren't raised to earn loyalty through suffering. You deserve it by simply being who you are. Because the truth is, if they really loved you, they wouldn't need to hurt you to learn. If they really cared, they wouldn't need to break your heart to find their clarity. Loyalty means they choose you before the damage, not just after the regret. It means standing in the fire with you, not setting it and watching you burn. It means honoring your heart without turning it into a battlefield for their emotional immaturity. You are not rehab for broken people who refuse to fix themselves. You are not a checkpoint in someone's emotional journey. You are the destination, the home, not the heartbreak hotel. You are the prize, not the penalty. And anyone who treats your love like a lesson doesn't deserve your presence in their graduation. Let them take their diploma of regret elsewhere. Because the woman who gives her heart doesn't deserve to be taught pain. She deserves to be taught loyalty. She deserves someone who doesn't learn by hurting her, but shows up because they already know how to treat her right. Loyalty isn't something you beg for. It's something you attract. When you finally realize you were never asking for too much, you were just asking the wrong people. And if they had to lose you to learn how to love, that says more about their delay than your worth. You were ready. You were loyal. You were everything. And next time, don't settle for being the lesson. Be the standard. Be the reward. Be the one they don't get to damage just to discover their value for someone else. Because you were never their practice. You were the promise. And if they had to lose you to learn how to love, that says more about their delay than your... You were ready. You were loyal. You were everything. And next time, don't settle for being the lesson. Be the standard. Be the reward. Be the one they don't get to damage just to discover their value for someone else. Because you were never their practice. You were the promise. They knew what they were doing. They saw the light in you and still chose to dim it. They saw your loyalty, your softness, your willingness to fight for them, and still turned their backs. And now, you're sitting in the ruins they left behind, wondering if you were too much. But let me tell you something today. You were not too much. You were too pure for people who were too empty. Too real for people who only knew how to fake love. Too whole for people who were looking for someone they could break. Listen carefully. This is not your breakdown. This is your breakthrough. This pain wasn't designed to destroy you. It was designed to reveal you, to teach you who never deserved a seat at your table in the first place. You were busy feeding people who were starving for your energy, but never planning to nourish you in return. And now that you've walked away, they feel it. Now that your silence speaks louder than your tears ever could. They feel the emptiness they created. There comes a time when you stop explaining yourself, stop trying to heal what someone broke on purpose, and start rising, not with rage, but with resolve. You don't rise to prove them wrong. You rise to remember who the hell you are. You rise because queens don't argue with clowns. You rise because your future cannot be delayed by people who couldn't see your worth. You rise because broken crayons still color and broken hearts still beat. Louder, stronger, braver. You rise because broken crayons still color and broken hearts still beat. Louder, stronger, braver. You rise because broken crayons still beat. Louder, stronger, braver. You rise because broken crayons... So when they come back, then they always do, trying to reopen the chapters they closed with their own hands. Remember this. You are not their unfinished story. You are a bestseller they didn't know how to read. Don't let them borrow your peace just because they finally found silence without you deafening. Don't let them manipulate your kindness just because now their world feels colder without your warmth. They left. And now you lead. Start living like the woman who survived herself. Not just them, yourself. The overthinking, the self-doubt, the loneliness, the nights you couldn't breathe from the betrayal. You walked through that fire, barefoot, bleeding, and still came out shining. You owe it to the woman you used to be to never go back to the version of you that tolerated less than you deserve. Never again shrink yourself to fit into places you've outgrown. You want famous lines? Let's make some of your own. She remembered who she was, and the game changed. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Don't chase people. Be an upgrade they regret losing. But here's one that will echo in your soul every time you feel like giving them a second chance. The woman who once begged is now the woman they can't reach. That's you now. Unreachable. Not because you're cold, but because you've grown. Untouchable. Not because you're bitter, but because you've healed. Unapologetic. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've finally started choosing yourself. Let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them spin whatever story helps them sleep at night. Because the woman who has peace within doesn't need approval outside. The most dangerous woman alive is the one who no longer reacts to chaos. She simply removes herself. That's power. That's grace. That's evolution. So here's your truth. Wrapped in fire and spoken from the soul. You don't owe them a second chance. Not when they had 1,000 chances to love you right the first time. Not when they knew they were damaging you and kept doing it anyway. This is your sign. This is your closure. This is your crown being adjusted. Not in silence, but in full spotlight. Because a woman like you doesn't go backwards. She rebuilds, she reinvents, she rises. And when she rises, the world watches.